Okay, I know a few of you are having some trouble with the Delta Math, so I am going to try to work out a few examples that maybe will help you do these problems here. Um, so this problem asks us to go step by step to reduce the radical. So the first ones of these problems are going to ask you to do this step by step. So we're starting off with 300. Sorry, this is flipped around. Okay. So 300. Now, there are a lot of different things we could multiply to get 300. We could do 30 times 10. We could do like 2 times 150. But none of those aren't going to help us, because if we try to take the square root of each one of those, you can't take the square root of 30 or 10 or 2 or 150. So what you want to do here, we know those perfect squares, or we should know those perfect squares. We should know that 9 is a perfect square. The square root of 9 is 3. And 16 is a perfect square. The square root of 16 is 4. So you've got those numbers that you know, and that's what you want to test to see if it'll work. So our perfect squares, one of those is 100. The square root of 100 is 10. So whenever you do this problem, 300 could be written instead as 100 times 3. So what they're wanting you to do over here on the Delta Math is they want you to type in, and it's not working so well. Let me see if I can right here. So right here, we could put a 100 right here and a 3 right here. We're going to click try. And then so if I take the square root of 100, 100 is a perfect square. The square root of 100 is 10. So once you take the square root of 10, the square root of 100 and have 10, it's not underneath the square root anymore. But 3 is not a perfect square. I cannot take the square root of 3, so I'm going to put a 3 right here. I'm going to click try and submit answer. And yes, I want to submit that answer, and that is correct. Okay, so let's go to the next problem. Let's do another one. That's the same problem. So let me just type that in real quick so that we can get to one that is different. All right, let's try this. Hopefully it'll give us a different one this time. Okay, square root of 160. So 160, we're thinking of numbers that we can use to multiply to get 160. Well, if you think of those perfect squares that you know, it might be helpful. I'm going to just list out those perfect squares up to 100. We know, let's see, our perfect squares over here. I'm going to list them out. Our 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. 2 times 2 is 4, so the square root of 4 is 2. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. And then 10 times 10 is 100. So whenever you're trying to break this number down, you're only using these perfect squares, or you could use larger numbers like 121 and 144. We could do 13 times 13, 14 times 14, all of those. So for this one, we can see 16 times 10 would give us 160. So we could break this down into 16 times 10. So you got the square root of 16 times the square root of 10. So if we go over here, we could type in 16 and 10. I'll click try. The square root doesn't have to come, well, on these it might have to come first. And the square root of 16 is 4. When you take that square root, it's no longer under the square root. It's on the outside like this, but the 10 is trapped. It has to stay underneath that square root. So we're going to click try and submit answer. And yes, and we can see we got that one right. Let's do one more together. Okay, square root of 180. Now, for this problem, 180, we're thinking of these numbers. Now, the first thing I thought of when I saw this was 18 times 10. But 18 is not on this list. It's not a perfect square. And 10 is not a perfect square. So 18 times 10 is not going to help us here. We can't take the square root of either one of those. So what we're going to have to think of other numbers that would work here. So if you get your calculator, I'm just going to pull up the one on the computer here. You could just start, you could try 180 divided by 4. That works. We could do 4 times 45, but we could have a bigger number that we could use. So if I do 180 divided by 9, 9 times 20 would also work. There might be a bigger number, so let's keep checking. If we do 180 divided by 16, oh wait, 180 divided by 16. Okay, that does not work. I know 25 is not going to go into 180 because that's not going to go evenly. I could try 36. 36 goes evenly. Now notice here you got 36 times 5. You're probably not going to get a number that goes any better than that. I guess we could try 64. So 180 divided by 64. And that's going to give us a decimal, so that doesn't work. So right here, the quickest and easiest numbers to use are 36 times 5. Because if we do 36 times 5, it is going to give us 180. So what we'll do over here, let's reduce that. So we'll do 36 times 5. And then we know how to take the square root of 36. It is 6, so it goes on the outside here, and 5 goes on the inside. And so we click submit answer, yes, and that is correct. So hopefully this will help you a little bit. Now notice down here, whenever they give you the answer, they also give you a slower path. Notice here how they used 4 times the square root of 45. We saw that that worked. If you do that, 4 times 45, we take the square root of 4, we get 2, but we had the 45 underneath. 45 will still break down. It'll break down into 9 and 5, and then so the square root of 9 is 3. And so then you have to do 2 times 3, which gives you 6 square root of 5, which is what we ended up getting. If you choose the bigger numbers that go into this, it'll work best. You're welcome to use the calculator as you work on these for these problems. I hope this helps a little bit. If you have other questions, please let me know.